Hi guys, I'm Nicola McKenzie, co-founder here at Dunham McCarthy, and today's interview we're going to be focusing on renters and having a discussion and talking about the vital areas of financial protection that renters should be considering, because I saw quite an alarming statistic actually back in 2020. People in their mid-30s to mid-40s are 3 times more likely to rent than they were 20 years ago. Now, despite the huge growth in the rental market, the Financial Conduct Authority reports that a staggering 47% of renters have got low financial resilience. So that statistic for me just really highlights the need for renters to be considering prioritising their financial well-being, because the consequences, guys, of failing to pay your rent can be just as severe as those faced by homeowners. So in today's conversation, I'll be aiming to explore with Richard Ellis why renters should not neglect their financial health, and we'll have a bit of a chat about some of the protection options that they may want to consider. So Richard is a business development manager from Avvia, one of the leading insurers in the UK, and he'll be giving us some valuable insights and personal experiences as well into why protection for renters is so important. So welcome to the interview, Richard, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll start by saying.
Brilliant. Thanks for inviting me on, Nicola. Pleasure.
No worries at all. So Richard, just for the audience at home, can you just provide us a really brief background on your role as BDM at Avvia? What do you do day to day?
Yeah, so I've been at Avvia now for 19 years, I think it is now, and I've been doing my role as a BDM for 9 of those years. Part of my role is to obviously promote opportunities in the market for advisors to speak to clients, get that protection message across, look for ways of growing business, supporting advisors on a day-to-day basis in terms of product knowledge, opportunities, but also as well having those proper conversations, as I call them, in terms of getting clients to understand the need for protection.
Okay, brilliant. So I want to start, Richard, by because this was, I guess you could say, what inspired me to reach out to you and invite you on to the interview, because I understand that your family has had personal experience with being in rented accommodation, and I think it was your father that had an accident that affected his ability to work. So do you mind sharing that experience with our audience and kind of give us a bit of an insight on how that influenced your perspective on insurance products for renters as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a story that I'm always happy to tell because I think it really brings the conversations to life from my point of view that I have with my advisors. So you're talking 20 years ago, my dad left for work. Growing up as kids, me and my brother never really wanted for much. And he left for work one day, and then we got the call that he'd been in a serious car accident. And overnight, our lives changed as a family. My dad, to this day, has never been able to work again due to the impact of the injuries that he suffered and also the long-term health impact following that car accident. My mum had to stop working pretty much overnight at the same time as well to become my dad's full-time carer, a job that she still does to this day. And I take my hat off to anybody what's a home carer, because it is not an easy job. We went from a 2-income household to effectively living off benefit. So me and my brother got told no a lot more as we were growing up. In family holidays stopped. Christmas has got a little bit tighter. We're coming to that end at that time of the year now as well. And from my point of view, and also being a renter myself as well, I feel that I'm quite lucky to work in this industry because I can see the impact of what the conversations that like yourself and other advisors have with your clients can have when the worst happens. And it's something that my dad always kicks himself about. And the reason why he didn't have protection in place purely because nobody was reaching out to him, because he was a renter rather than a mortgage client, where the conversation would tend to normally follow suit and form part of that mortgage process.
And I mean, it might sound like I'm stating the obvious, but going back, what kind of a difference could an income protection policy, for example, have made to your family's life?
Massively. I mean, if we're talking about products as a whole, straight away could have claimed on critical illness due to the nature of his illness at the time. He would have been receiving income protection benefit for the last 20 years, which would have covered a substantial portion of his salary. When the day comes, he doesn't have any life insurance. So again, as a family, we've got to start thinking, well, how would we pay for things like funerals? As morbid as that sounds, but it's an everyday reality.
Yeah.
And it would have just made everything easier for a family, because when something like that happens, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience, it's not just the financial impact, but it's also the emotional impact as well. My mum and dad went from, all right, you've been married for 40 odd years now, I think it is. It's their anniversary in a couple of weeks now, so I should really know that. But yeah, they've like I said, they've gone from having two separate jobs, happy families, to effectively living under each other's feet. And as I said, my mum is a carer. It's a stressful job. My dad can't do what he used to be able to do. He always used to do physical jobs. He gets easily frustrated as well. So there's a lot of tetchiness that
Yeah.
can come into the relationship as well. And obviously me and
Yeah.
my brother see that as well. So like I said, the financial aspect definitely does play on that. And if you look at like the state benefits that my dad's lived off now for the last 20 odd years, it's nowhere near in comparison to things like income protection. And I always say state benefits are never guaranteed. They can change whoever's in government. So don't take it that you're entitled to benefits, because I can't tell you the number of hoops my dad's had to jump through to first get the benefits and then try and retain them as well, which I believe and he believes he's fully entitled to.
I think as well that's a key point, in that obviously a lot of people don't always, I suppose, this doesn't always resonate with people, but once you have an illness or a condition, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to take that cover out. And that's why certainly as a brokerage, we encourage people, when you are young and fit and healthy, at the point when you don't think you need it, that's the time when you really do need it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks you're invincible, especially when you're younger. You're not thinking about cancer, heart attacks, dying, or anything like that. You think, well, it'll never happen to me. If it does, I've got people I can rely on that'll help keep a roof over my head, pay my bills for me. They'll do it for so long. Nobody's got an endless pot of money to support other people, no matter how much you love them. And yeah, again, it's the importance of having protection, as you say, Nicola. While you're young, fit, and healthy, it's going to be better rates for you, and it's going to be cheaper premium as well.
Definitely. So now then, let's look at specifically at, again, the rental market, in that renters do tend to be underinsured. So I got a statistic actually from Avvia's website. It said that 73% of renters don't have any protection products. Now, what do you think, Richard, in your opinion, what do you think are the common reasons that renters do tend to neglect life, critical illness and income protection products?
Well, this is only something that I really started thinking about when I actually rented my first property. I got through a lettings agency. As I say, this is why I feel myself really looking to work in the industry, because I know the importance of protection. But if I didn't work in this industry, I can pretty much guarantee I won't have any protection in place.
Yeah.
And also as well, the fact that there was no follow-up once I got my keys for my property from anybody, either a lettings agency or an advisor that might work on behalf of that lettings agency, or might have links in with that lettings agency to say, look, you've got your property, it's your home. You want to make sure that you can keep that roof over your head. You want to make sure you can pay your bills, put food on the table. Yeah, as I say, I keep saying, I'm lucky to work in this industry, because if I didn't and nobody's speaking to me, and I think this would be the same for a vast majority of renters out there, if nobody's having the conversation, you're not going to know what's out there and what's important for you and your family as well.
It's so true. And I also think as well, though, it's because we, again, every time that we get a client inquire about a mortgage that's in rented accommodation, we'll have the conversation to explain to them, look, protection isn't just exclusive to homeowners.
Yeah.
There are some occasions where, despite that, it's a case of, we'll wait until we get the mortgage.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the common misconception that renters can have, is that it's that association of protection with just home ownership.
Yes, no, I completely agree. And I've had various conversations with different advisors. I've run webinar sessions myself around this subject recently and in the past as well. As I say, it's a subject that I'm really passionate about because it, as I say, it affects me as a renter, and it affected my parents and us as a family when my mum and dad were renting as well. And the conversation that I'm having with advisors now seems to have opened a few eyes, shall we say, in terms of the opportunities that are out there that they've never thought about, such as talking to friends and family who may be renting, using the buy-to-let clients to get access to the tenants of those properties, or ultimately as well, if you're thinking a little bit more bigger and a little bit more wide scale, linking to local lettings agencies or estate agency firms that you may already have relationships with through your mortgage brokerage as well.
And what would you say if there are renters, because we do get a lot of renters that follow this channel, if there are renters out there that are still thinking it's really just relevant for when I get a mortgage, what might you tell them?
Don't hesitate. Get it today, because nobody knows what tomorrow will bring. Again, working in doing the job that I do, speaking to the advisors that I do, I lose count of how many people ring me up and say, I've got a client what's been diagnosed with a serious illness or had an accident, which is just stopping them from working, or they've had a client what's passed away. The clients that have got protection, or the families of the deceased that have had that protection in place, you can't put words into how much that means to them. But on the flip side, those clients what don't have protection and something bad happens to them, but they've had the conversation and maybe declined the advice of that advisor, they're the ones what really go on to regret it, because again, like we said earlier, the longer you leave it, the more expensive it gets. Your health history may change, which may impact future premiums on protection products, or even your ability to get protection in the first instance. As somebody who's a renter, I have got protection. I've got life, I've got kick, I've got income protection. If I was to ever move out of my rented property, either to another rented property or go onto the mortgage ladder, those products can follow me. I can change those products in line with my circumstances at the time. I'm not having to cancel and try and rewrite policies or make it even more expensive for me based on new rates. Those products follow me wherever I go. And if my circumstances change in terms of family and I start having kids and things like that, I've got policies already in place that my kids would automatically be covered under my existing policies as well. And they're on the same premium as what I've always been paying ever since I had the protection plans in place.
Such a good point that you touch on there, Richard, in terms of the flexibility options that are built into these products, because I think people again often assume that they take it out and whatever they arrange today has to stay as it is for the next 30 years. And that's just not the case. You know, insurers understand that people's circumstances change. So many of these products have a really flexible approach where people can adapt them as their circumstances and lifestyles change. So yeah, it's a really good point. So in conclusion then, Richard, what message, is there anything else you'd want to add or advice that you want to share with renters to again emphasize the significance of these types of products that we've not already covered? Is there anything you want to add in?
Again, it's just getting that conversation going. As I say, I think on the stats that I saw, I think there's 4 million renters what rent through private tenancy. A very, very small percentage of those have actually got any protection at all, and some of those will have got protection just through their employer rather than having a discussion with an advisor. So the opportunity is huge. The need for renters like myself and that is very much needed. As I say, we don't know what's around the corner tomorrow. We don't know if it's tomorrow we're going to be diagnosed with something serious, pass away, or not be able to work. So again, goes back to the point is have the conversation as early as possible, get the policies as early as possible, because it'll only benefit you as a tenant and it'll benefit the advisor as well in terms of business growth.
And as well, I'm just going to add in a point. We briefly touched on it earlier on, but I do want to stress this point for people that are anticipating becoming homeowners in the future. Really, really important. 2 additional reasons that one we didn't mention: protection of the deposit. We had a client, obviously I won't name the client, but ultimately they came to see us for some initial advice, then unfortunately became ill and exhausted the house deposit as a result of needing to dip into their savings. an income protection plan and or critical illness could have avoided that situation. So it's really about protecting that deposit that you've built up so that you can still become a homeowner, because there are lenders out there that will take income protection policies into account for affordability. It also means that you're not having to dip into that deposit. But also another point that I will add is that it also protects your credit rating, because if you lose your income between being a renter and becoming a homeowner, then that could impact on your ability to pay your commitments. And of course, that could lead to your credit rating suffering. So it's really about protecting your deposit, protecting your credit rating, and just protecting your finances and your family's future, or your future if you're single and don't have any dependents. So it's something that I am equally as passionate about as well, Richard, which was again one of the reasons why I invited you onto the interview, because in my opinion, not enough people are talking about protection for renters. I just don't see that the conversation is being had as much as it should be. So yeah, we're here to create awareness. And I hope that that video has been useful, guys. So Richard, can I just say thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, sharing those personal experiences and those insights, I'm sure has been really, really useful for the audience. So thank you. And please do make sure, if you did enjoy today's video and you found it useful, that you give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button on the channel if you haven't already. And of course, if any of the topics that we have touched on today are areas that you do wish to explore, then you can contact the team here at Dunham McCarthy and we can give you the appropriate advice and let you know what your options are. But that's it for today's video. So thanks again, Richard. And yeah, I'll catch up with you guys in the next video.